Okay, Mark Eckel, Ken Dunek, bringing you the Bird Brains with Ken and Mark. Mark, are you familiar with the term heater?
Heater?
Do you know what a heater is?
It warms your house.
I
don't need one.
It's a gambling term. Think of it in the gambling parlance. A heater. A heater is
I know
when you're
cooler.
playing. Yeah, well, cooler. Everybody knows what a cooler. That was a great movie, by the way. The
Yes.
Cooler, but. A heater is when you can basically do nothing wrong. If you're playing golf, your ball will hit a tree and kick in bounds and you'll make a birdie. If you're playing poker, you're drawn to inside straights and flushes all night long. And in sports betting, you get a backdoor cover when you have no reason to win the game. And a heater is what I consider the Birds to be on right now after watching Kansas City pretty much statistically dominate them in many aspects of that game. Now you get paid to win, and the Eagles won. Is there a cause for concern?
A little bit. Listen. I said to you a month ago, and I've said it my whole career covering the NFL. You never apologize for a win.
Oh no apology. This is not an apology. This is an explanation.
No, I know what you're saying. Listen, Kansas City. If you're a fantasy fan, if you're a stat fan, Kansas City should have won that game by 30, right? I mean, interception in the end zone, fumble, the drop touchdown at the end of the game. I mean, Kansas City left a lot of points on the board. But guess what? That's points. The things that matter to me, and I've never been a yardage fan. They're the third best team in the league by, third best offense in the league. They have the. No, they're not. Just because they get a lot of yards don't mean they're good. Yards are nice, but points matter. The Eagles managed to keep the Chiefs at it. They caused the fumble. They got turnover next to points. Turnover is the most important number.
Well, the Eagles do wear green, and green is a lucky color, so maybe that's the reason. Hey, before we get too far into this, let me mention our sponsor, Jersey Man and Philly Man Magazine. Mark, we just had our gala a couple of weeks ago. Had 425 people there, raised $18,000 for 6 local charities. And our holiday party is coming up. So if you're listening to this podcast, you'd like to check out the Jersey Man, Philly Man Business Network. It's on December 14th. If you email me, ken@jerseymanmagazine.com, or hit my cell, 856-912-4007. I can give information, give you a free look at the Jersey Man, Philly Man Business Network. And by the way, if you see me dabbing at my nose in this podcast, I did have sinus surgery this weekend, so it was a fun weekend. Instead of laying horizontal on the couch watching 12 or 15 football games, I actually had to sit up in my easy chair. It was a difficult weekend.
You were listed as questionable.
You can't make the team in the tub, man. You cannot make the team in the tub.
I was confident.
You got to find a way. Hey, I found a way, just like the Eagles find a way, right?
Yes.
Now you got to give them credit. If anything else, they're a gritty, gutty team that finds a way. I mentioned good fortune is smiling on them. I mean, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, he catches that ball 98 out of 100 times. Would you agree?
Know. No.
Really?
No, I know Marcus Valdez-Scantling. He played. That was his career in one play. As a Packer follower, I know him. He was with the Packers for 4 years before he left.
So he's prone to those drops.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yes. Some people call him MVS, Marcus Valdez-Scantling. I used to call him VDM, Venus de Milo. Because he has no hands.
Don't sugarcoat it. Tell everybody the way you really feel.
I mean, no, that was his career, his 6-year career. Now he's put up some. Now when he does catch him, he has he probably leads per catch, whatever. He has a big yard per average catch because he can get deep, obviously, and he can beat his man like he beat whoever was covering him the other night. He does that all the time, but it's 50-50 whether he's going to catch the ball, and that was one of the 50 that he didn't. I mean, no, he's been known for bad hands throughout his career. He has everything else. He runs good routes. He gets open. He has blazing speed.
I will say this: if you're a starting wide receiver on the defending world championship football team and you have two steps on your defender and the guy lays the ball right in your hands, I would assume the expectation is that you're going to catch the football, correct?
Yeah, it is. But listen, there isn't a Packer fan in America. That was, a matter of fact, they follow me on X now and everything. All the reactions from Green Bay fans were, "Huh, yeah, no kidding, he dropped it. Oh, yeah, but we've seen that before." It was not. People in Green Bay were not surprised. That's all I'm going to say. They were not a little bit surprised that he dropped that pass because we've seen it. We've seen Aaron Rodgers. I mean, the guy's played his whole career with Aaron Rodgers and Patrick Mahomes. He should be a superstar.
Right. How many years has he been in the league?
6. This is his 6th year.
Okay, so he's been
played
around.
4 in Green Bay, and like I said, he had his moments. He's had his moments where he's been really good, and he's had plays like that. I mean, his good moments is why he's still in the league. If he only had moments like the one the other night, he'd have been out of the league,
right.
a couple years ago. But no, it's yeah. I mean, now if you started by asking me, is there a concern? Well, yeah, there's concern in that not everybody's going to drop that pass.
Well, hey, listen, and it's not just the Kansas City game. Go back to Dallas before the bye week. Now, they were 2 inches away from winning that football game. They had a 4th down touchdown reversed on a call that was fractional, but it was the correct call. And then the quarterback, Dak on the 2-point conversion. They called it good, and he stepped out about a foot before. So I'm just saying that, to be a successful team, things like this have to fall right for you. And right now, the Eagles are on the good side of it. I'm not apologizing for it. I'm just stating a fact. Yeah.
And if you want to look at, you brought up gambling and drawing the inside straights and doing all that. Well, that runs out. So all these fortunate breaks, they usually catch up to you, right? If you keep drawing to an inside straight, eventually you're not getting that 8. Right. You're getting if you keep hitting 16, you're going to get that 10, right? I mean, so yeah, it could run out. But I'll give credit, like to me, the difference in the Dallas, all right, that play where the guy was they thought he was in. I'm going to give was it Blankenship that made the tackle?
I believe it was. Who by the way, was all over the field that night. In my opinion, the best defensive player.
Ooh.
For the Eagles that night, that kid's
that night, yes.
That kid's a player, man. He's all over the place, and he'll hit your heart too.
But I mean, I'm going to give him credit for stopping the guy 2 inches short of the goal line, stopping the Cowboy tight end. I'm not giving anybody credit for Valdez-Scantling dropping the ball. I mean, the Eagle corner got burned. He got burned and should have. If he catches that, we're ripping that guy for getting burned at it. And where was the safety help?
Right. Well, but here's a good example of good teams find a way. And I'll tell you what I was really impressed with. Now, the Chiefs went into that game, and they were going to take A.J. Brown out of the equation, right? He had 1 catch for 9 yards. Devontae Smith, because the Eagles are so talented, Devontae Smith has a big game. He's got 6 catches for 99 yards.
In the big play that won the game.
And you're right. And keep in mind that Dallas Goedert is out of the game, so they don't have that weapon. So to be able to maneuver that without your starting tight end and taking away your best wide receiver and still being able to come up with a win. I'll tell you what else was impressive. They started out that game without a tight end. They played a lot of sets with 3 and 4 wide receivers, and they were still able to effectively run the football. DeAndre Swift had 76 yards on 12 carries. I mean, he had a nice game. Jalen Hurts had 29 yards and probably more net yards than that if you take away the sacks. And by the way, 5 sacks. You and I were texting each other during the game. Yeah. The Eagles' offensive line did not show up in the first half. I don't know what was going on. I don't know if it was scheme or whatever, but that was a dicey situation. And by the way, Jalen Hurts is still not healthy. He still had the knee brace on. He still looks like he's dragging that leg to me a little bit. Now, he did have a couple of effective runs, but, they don't really have that dimension of having to guard him as much as they used to on those design quarterback draws.
But I'm glad you brought up Hurts, because to me, he's something.
He's a gamer, man. He's a winner.
Yes.
Absolute winner.
He's all that. I mean, I've covered some great quarterbacks, in my, through my, with the Eagles and other teams. He's something. He.
And it's
I
not
can't
just
say enough
Marcus.
good things
It's
about
not
him.
just his performance, his demeanor on and off the
Yes.
field. It's his humility. It's the way he carries himself. You know, he and Brown got into another dust up on the sideline the other day.
Oh,
And
after the
and
interception.
Brown is animated because he thought Jalen should have thrown the ball deep and it could have been a touchdown. And Jalen's just standing there taking it, smiling. I got you, bro.
But that was Brown's fault.
Well,
I mean, well, you know what
the
happened.
route was adjusted. Whoever didn't make
Right.
the proper
Hurts.
adjustment, whether it was
Well,
Hurts or Brown.
Brown saw something and went deep, figuring he'll be. But Hurts is doing what the play called for, which is to throw the ball where he threw it.
Right.
He didn't know Brown was going to turn it off and go. It's one of them things, one of them bang bang things. Now again, Hurts has a 300-pounder bearing down on him. You don't have time to see that Brown adjusted his route. He's throwing it where it's supposed to be thrown.
Mm-hmm.
So listen, I'm going to take Hurts' side always. I think he does the thing. No, I'm serious. He does the right thing 99% of the time.
I agree. And, he had pedestrian numbers, 14 for 22, 150 yards, no TDs, one interception.
2 running touchdowns.
2 running touchdowns. Patrick Mahomes, 24 for 43, only 177, 2 touchdowns and 1 interception. What is it that you think, now the Chiefs have been shut out in the second half for 3 consecutive weeks.
Amazing.
This is the most prolific offense, arguably, for the last 4 years in the league. What do you think's missing there right now?
The wide receivers. They're terrible. This is a bad group of wide receivers. I mean, they all right. They had Tyreek Hill for
why they let him go?
Well, they traded him. He wanted a bunch of because listen. This is Andy
Does
Reid
money really
changed a little
matter?
bit.
Does money really matter in the NFL when you got a guy that can play? Really?
I mean, if Andy's still Andy, and he's changed a little bit, and he doesn't care. Why did the Eagles have Todd Kingston and James Thrash as their starting wide receivers for all those years?
Because the Eagles were cheap back then. Norman Brayman owned them.
No, that was Laurie. That was
was it?
Brayman. Yeah. No, because Andy doesn't believe in wide receiver. Andy believes you get a great quarterback and a great offensive line, and I can bring in Larry Curly and Mo to play wide receiver.
Hard to believe. And what is a passing league right now that you wouldn't believe in wide
receiver?
Yeah,
but he believes in the quarterback. The quarterback will make the receiver better. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times,
if they can catch.
Brady,
that's a big factor in being a good wide receiver.
But I mean, listen, they've tried. They went out and got Tony from the Giants, who I don't think they use enough. He's dynamic when he's he had the big play in the Super Bowl last year.
And what a punt returner that guy is too. Wow, he's got all the moves.
They drafted Sky Moore in the second round, and he just hasn't. He's a kid. He just hasn't picked up the system maybe yet, or hasn't developed like they wanted him to quite, as quickly as they had hoped. Maybe they went out and got Valdez-Scantling, who, like I said before, he has all the talent. It's all there. He needs to work on it. I mean, I don't know. I've seen guys where their hands have gotten better, but this is 6 years now. I don't know after 6 years if they get better. Yeah, and his tight end is a star. He has a star tight end in Kelsey, who had a bad game. Travis Kelsey, by normal standards, didn't have a good game.
7 catches, 44 yards, and a touchdown, but a big fumble. I think Roby punched that ball out, which was a nice play.
A bad fumble, and he had a bad drop as well. The Chiefs dropped, I think, 5 or 6 balls in that game.
Well, you don't think he was hitting the jugs gun in Argentina visiting Taylor Swift, or he didn't bring it with him?
I'm not gonna.
That's another thing. Andy Reid undressed Travis Kelsey as he was coming off the field at one point. Did you see that? Did you notice that?
Didn't see that?
Oh no, he was up in his face. I mean, his facial expressions. He was barking at him. I mean, hey, listen, I don't care. In this day and age, we talked about this last week. What are you going to do with Travis Kelsey? He wants to go to Argentina on his off week. Are you going to cut him? No, he's one of the greatest players in the league. Right. So, what's a coach supposed to do? But when you see a performance like that after the guy goes to Argentina on his off week, I think that's cause for concern for any football coach.
Yes, I agree. But I'm saying that getting back, Mahomes is still great. He's still great.
He is.
Just the most talented player in the league.
His escapability is unlike anything I've ever seen.
And his throws. I mean, that throw to Scantling was incredible.
Yeah.
but if the Chiefs receivers don't improve or pick it up or whatever words you want to use, they're not going back to the Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
They're not going back. I'm telling you, they're either Baltimore or somebody's going to beat them. They're just, I mean, you can't keep not getting shut out in the second half every week.
Yeah, they definitely have some issues. But, statistically, let me give you an idea of how much they dominated that game. They beat the Eagles in first downs 23-16. They outrushed them 168-114. They outpassed them 168-124. Their total yardage was 336 versus the Eagles 238. Each team had 7 penalties. Of course, the Eagles won the turnover battle 2-1, and Kansas City had 5 sacks. So statistically, you would look at those numbers and say there's nothing wrong with Kansas City, but we just gave examples of what is going on there.
Yeah, like I said, they gave up. I mean, both turnovers came in the red zone, so that's a minimum 6 points and a maximum of 14 that they gave away, and then the drop touchdown. That's so. They gave away anywhere between 13 and 21 points.
Mm-hmm.
Add those on, and it's an easy win for Kansas City.
Yep. Defensively, Kevin Byard had a big pick in the end zone that was uncharacteristically poor decision by Mahomes. But you talked about Mahomes and his ability to escape and do things on the fly. I mean, the 2 quarterbacks that come to mind in my lifetime that were really good at that is Fran Tarkington back in the 70s.
Ooh, you're going way back.
I'm old, man.
Wow.
Where you want me to go? That's where I go back
I didn't think you were going that far.
And then Brett Favre. You're a Packer guy. Brett Favre could improvise, but nothing like Patrick Mahomes.
Randall Cunningham. I thought you were going to say Randall
Cunningham was, but yeah,
that's fine. I would have said Randall.
But I mean, Randall was such a far superior athlete to both Tarkenton and Brett Favre.
Right.
But Mahomes just seems to, he can escape while with his eyes downfield. He doesn't panic, and eventually, the defensive backs are going to break down because there's just too much time for him to find an open target.
No, you're right. And that's what's made him just an unbelievable player. I mean, it was fun watching Hurts and Mahomes. I mean, I really hope that this was a Super Bowl preview, review, whatever you want to call it. I like watching these 2 teams play because I love watching those 2 quarterbacks play. With that said, when that game ended, I didn't say, wow, what a great game. These 2 teams are going to play Super Bowl again. Because, like you said, there was concerns about the Eagles, even though they won. There were some concerns, and to me, there's a lot of concerns about Kansas City and that offense. Just leaving too many. You can't leave. You're going to lose to good teams like the Eagles when you leave points like that out there. Something has to get fixed there, and I'll trust Andy and his coaching staff that they'll do something to get it. I don't know. Not sure. Maybe you have to start playing the kid Sky Moore. Maybe get him out there more often. I would get Tony more involved. I like him. I liked him in college in Florida.
Yeah, he doesn't seem to be really that involved in the offense. You'd think a guy with that kind of quickness would be targeted more, but it didn't look like he was the other night.
No, he does. And again, I'm not there. I don't know what he's doing to practice. Again, he caught the touchdown pass in the Super Bowl last year. That was pretty impressive. That gave the Chiefs the lead. A guy that they let go, and I'm surprised on both ends that he would leave and that they would let him go, was that Juju Schuster.
Mm-hmm. Well, but he's a problem everywhere he goes.
Yeah,
he was a problem in Pittsburgh, and Andy Reid being old school, I don't think he wants a problem. Hey, I'm going to agree with you. I don't think this game was near as entertaining or as good as the Super Bowl. How much do you think the field conditions had to do with it? It was a rainy night in Kansas City. Because normally you think those 2 teams would light up the scoreboard, and I think they scored 38 points. Right. The over and under was 45.5 or 46. Don't ask me how I know that, but
you probably. I'm hoping you had the under, but I was going to say, it looked like a miserable night. It was nice watching it here in Myrtle Beach, but it was beautiful out. But it looked like a miserable night to be out there playing. The rain was constant all night. You saw guys slipping a little bit. Yeah, it wasn't the ideal. It wasn't like it was, you know, like it's like if you're in a dome or you're playing in
Right.
Miami or LA or somewhere. So yeah,
Or unless
that
they,
probably
or in the Super Bowl, unless they slick up the field
yeah.
on you, right? All right.
Um,
So Mark, the Eagles are now entering. They've entered last week in what the team and many prognosticators are calling the gauntlet.
what's going on?
A series of games that were going to make or break the Eagles' season. Right now, the Eagles are 9-1. They just beat the defending world champions on their home field. Now, the game that scares me most of the upcoming games, and you've got Buffalo at home, San Francisco at home, at Dallas, at Seattle, and then you've got the Giants, Arizona, and at the Giants, which is a favorable end of the schedule.
That's Larry Curly Monk, like I mentioned earlier.
I fear this Buffalo game more than any other, and here's a
Really?
couple reasons why. Number one, there's probably going to be a little bit of an emotional letdown in coming off of beating the world champions. You feel vindication, and it's human nature that you don't get as high for the next game as you do for the previous game when it has that kind of magnitude. Number two, Buffalo is in desperation mode. They're a good football team. If they can control their turnovers, they can go toe to toe with the Eagles. And I really think you're going to get the best of the Buffalo Bills, even though the game's at home and the Eagles are a slight favorite. I do believe that this Buffalo game is going to be a very difficult game. The next week, San Francisco, they just lost Bosa and they lost a starting linebacker. I don't think their defense is going to be as good as it has been in previous weeks. That's a winnable game. I think the Dallas game, it's at Dallas, but I do think a rivalry, it's going to be a winnable game. I think at Seattle might be the second toughest, even though they're not quite as good of a team as the other ones that I just mentioned. It's always tough to play in Seattle. Go line by line here. What do you think about the Eagles Buffalo matchup
Oh,
first
I
of all?
agree with everything you said about Buffalo. Yeah, Buffalo, that's a good team. That's a talented team. They're well coached. I like Sean McDermott. I always have. Um, and like you said, they're desperate right now. If the playoffs started today, and they don't, but if they did, the Bills aren't in. So they can't. If the Bills lose and the Eagles are favored, like you said, if the Bills lose and a couple other teams win, you're talking about the Bills missing the playoffs, which would be that would not bode well in Buffalo or
No,
for McDermott or for that
it
team. I
might
mean,
it
they're
might
supposed to
it
make the
might
playoffs.
cost McDermott his job actually.
I wouldn't go that far, but maybe you're right. You never know.
Well,
If,
they're in
there's a little,
desperation mode. They fired Ken Dorsey last week.
and they did,
So,
and they did. So when you start firing assistant coaches, yeah, the head coach is right. You're right. He could be next, but yeah. So Buffalo, um, it is in Philly. So that'll be that helps. But yeah, I think the Bills are good. Um, Josh Allen, when he's good, is as good as anybody. Now he does throw some picks,
he does.
but the Eagles secondary has been up and down. They can't leave. Stephon Diggs isn't going to drop that ball in the end zone.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? That kid Davis that they have, he's pretty good too. He's not going to drop that ball again.
No.
The secondary is going to be tested this week, and they're going to have to pass that test if they're going to beat Buffalo. Um, yeah, this is going to be a really good game. It's a 4:25 game, right?
I believe so.
Yeah, that's going to be.
Do you agree with my assessment of the San Francisco defense being
Yeah.
weakened with the loss
Well,
of
yeah,
those
I
two
don't.
guys?
That's the wrong Bosa though. The Bosa that got did both Bosas get hurt? Because the one for the Chargers is the one that got hurt bad. Joey, I think that's it. Yeah,
You might be right, but
yeah, he's the one that got hurt bad.
Okay, my mistake.
San Fran, I just think the Eagles match up well against San Fran. So yeah, I agree. Everybody in the world will tell you San Fran's a tougher game, except you and I. I think Buffalo's. I think they'll. This week's gonna be tough. I think it'll be. Listen, all of them are gonna be good games. San Fran's gonna be tough, but I think the Eagles will find. Again, it's home. I think they'll find a way. I think at Dallas is gonna be. The Eagles haven't played well in Dallas for a while now, and it's a revenge game. They generally split, and the Eagles won at home.
Revenge game, and
Yeah,
that's a game Dallas really has to
and
win.
they're going to be desperate too.
Yeah.
So that one bothers me. And then I got a little stat for you here about the Seattle game. Pete Carroll has never lost to the Philadelphia Eagles.
No
He's
way.
7-0. He's
Really?
7-0.
Wow.
7-0 since he's been in
See,
Seattle.
this is why you are who you are. To come up with that kind of stuff. That's gold, man. That's gold.
He's beaten Andy Reid, he's beaten Chip Kelly, and he's beaten Doug Peterson. Now he hasn't faced Nick Sirianni yet. So he's 7-0 against 3 different Eagle coaches. Again, people, when I tell you, oh, well, this year's different, I'm not saying it's not different. I'm just saying Pete Carroll's never lost to the Philadelphia Eagles. So there's something to be said there. Now, you could turn that around and say, well, the Eagles had never lost to the Jets before. So maybe this is the year where those streaks.
Yeah, I mean, those trends, and Andy Reid never lost coming off of a bye or whatever, right. That kind of stuff. You factor it in, but it's not the be all and end all of it.
Right. I'm not saying it's just an interesting little tidbit. That's all.
But the bottom line is we're happy with the Eagles' progress. They're 9-1. They look like they're going to be the NFC. There's a lot of work to do, but they certainly look like they have the inside track to be the NFC East champions, and certainly that home field advantage going into the playoffs is a huge deal. Interesting.
Well, there's one team that they don't play, but it's a team that Eagle fans better start paying attention to starting
Detroit
tomorrow. They're only a game behind.
Detroit, yeah, they're good. They're good.
They're not bad. They're finding ways to win too, and that Dan Campbell, you gotta love him, right?
But you
gotta love him.
Were you able to see any of that comeback against Chicago the other day?
That's all I saw. All I saw was the comeback because the team is switched over to that. Yeah. I mean, that's a dangerous team. I'm not saying. I'm just saying if the Eagles don't come back and win the other night, they're tied for the top seed. I think the Eagles have a tiebreaker right now, but I'm just saying that they would be the Lions. They're only a game behind.
It's funny, people talk about MVP candidates, and everybody talks about Mahomes and Mahomes and Hurts, but Jared Goff is having a nice season on a team that is leading their division. I mean, I would think that there'd start to be a little bit of chatter about him with that prize. But anyway,
well,
listen.
I think Dan Campbell's coach of the year, right?
I no question in my mind. Right. No, or either that or D'Amico Ryans. What he's doing down in Stroud is getting MVP chatter as a rookie. I mean, it's really kind of amazing the way he's played. But anyway,
he's doing great things. But
listen,
I loved him. Do you remember when he played for the Eagles?
I do. I actually interviewed him for the magazine at one point. He's nice, really humble, great guy. I'm happy to see that success for him. And
he's a guy that you knew. I talked to him every as much as I could. I mean, once a week. He would always be my guy that I go to for my advanced preview story because he could break everything. Just talking to him, I could tell if he wanted to be a coach, he'd be a really good coach. I'm not the least bit surprised.
A little of the characteristics of Jalen Hurts: very humble, contrite, very very even keeled. But you could see the determination and the fire that burned within him when I was talking to him. It's really impressed with him, and his success in Houston doesn't surprise me at all.
Mine either. No, I love D'Amico Ryans. I'm happy for him too. Great guy.
All right, Mark, we got some interesting stuff coming up, and it's good to be with you. By the way, Mark had some technical issues. You could not see his handsome face. We'll try to do something in a post edit to make sure you guys can see Mark, because Mark has a legion of groupies that really want to see his picture every time he's on the podcast.
I'm not sure about that.
But in any event, for Mark Eckel, this is Ken Dunek. Thanks for listening to the Bird Brains, everybody. Hopefully we'll be talking about an Eagles win next week against Buffalo. Take care.